In the United States, immigrants who are victims of certain crimes can obtain what's known as a U visa, which allows them to remain in the country and legally work while they await a resolution to their case. In January of 2024, 30-year-old William Winfrey and his accomplice, 22-year-old Rashud Scott, agreed to stage a fake robbery of a couple who were hoping to obtain U visas. They staged the stick-up outside a Houston, Texas convenience store where surveillance cameras captured footage of Scott running up to the couple at a gas pump and pretending to rob them. As he fled the scene on foot, a witness, Jesus Vargas, fatally shot him, bringing a tragic end to his unusual side hustle. Vargas reportedly told everyone at the scene to not tell anyone I was here before leaving the property. He later turned himself in and explained that he fled because he was on probation at the time and wasn't allowed to own a gun. Police released Vargas without charges and told news outlets that it would be up to a grand jury to decide whether to indict him. Investigators later discovered that Winfrey had participated in the planning of the crime and that he and Scott had staged a similar robbery the previous year for the same reason. In that case, the victims reportedly obtained U visas. 3 months after the shooting, Winfrey was charged with murder for his role in the incident. He remains held without bond at the Harris County Jail amid his ongoing case. Number 21. Alexander Sperber. A 25-year-old Florida man named Alexander Sperber became known as the Naked Bank Robber in July of 2017 after he disrobed while fleeing the scene of a bank heist in Fort Lauderdale. Sperber had just robbed $4,700 from a Regions Bank branch when a dye pack exploded on him outside. He stopped for long enough to remove his clothing, then ran away and threw $50 and $100 bills into the air, despite arriving at the crime scene in his car. Following his capture, Sperber told investigators that a chip inside his head told him to rob the bank so he could further his career as a comedian. He thought that his unclothed getaway in the act of throwing money into the air would get him noticed and that people would think it was funny. Sperber's 21-year-old sister Adriana told Local 10 News that her brother was an honors student at Florida Atlantic University and that he suffered from mental illness. Just a week before the robbery, he had received treatment at an inpatient mental health facility, and his family hoped that people could find enough compassion within themselves to see Sperber as more than just the naked Fort Lauderdale bank robber. Sperber was charged with bank robbery but was found to be not responsible for the crime due to insanity. The judge ordered him to remain in jail while he received mental treatment. Number 20. Ciara Briscom. On July 28, 2024, a woman entered a Princeton, New Jersey TD Bank branch with a semi-automatic handgun and demanded money from the teller. Later identified as 37-year-old Ciara Briscom, she threatened to use the weapon if anyone activated the bank's alarm and fled with nearly $61,000 in her possession. Police released surveillance images of the suspect, who was seen on foot outside a nearby Exxon gas station shortly after the robbery. The FBI finally identified and arrested Briscom in late September, nearly 2 months after the crime. The plot twist? The gun used during the crime wasn't a real gun. According to the criminal complaint, Briscom allegedly admitted that certain unspecified financial difficulties fueled her to rob a bank. In particular, she admitted that she went to a store to purchase an imitation toy gun that looked like an authentic gun to use during the robbery. She stated that the store lacked such a toy gun, so she instead purchased a pack of water pistols and a can of black spray paint to make it look more realistic. Briscom was originally charged with robbery, criminal restraint, possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose, unlawful possession of a weapon, terroristic threats, theft, money laundering, and aggravated assault. In June of 2025, she pleaded guilty to 1 count of bank robbery, which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison and a fine of up to $250,000. She's currently awaiting sentencing, which is scheduled for October. Number 19. Fred Wortman. Former Tennessee lawyer Fred Austin Wortman III was so determined to kill his wife that he tried and failed at it 3 times. He made his first attempt in January of 2015 when he infused his wife's toothpaste with a plant-based poison called aconitum. She fell ill but survived, and the couple's daughter also used the toothpaste but did not die. Police were unaware of Wortman's murderous desires until the following month, when his law partner called the Collierville police and reported finding information on one of his office computers about how to hire a hitman. Local law enforcement summoned help from the FBI, and federal agents called Wortman to let him know that they knew he had been researching hitmen and poison. Wortman was advised not to have any contact with his wife, but he stuck to his goal of hiring a hitman. In June of 2015, he met with an undercover agent from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, who he believed was a paid assassin. He showed the undercover a photo of his wife, discussed the details of the desired hit, and made arrangements to provide the rest of the payment after the job was done. Much to Wortman's surprise, the meeting was a sting and he was arrested immediately after, setting the plan in stone. But he didn't stop there. While in pre-trial detention for the murder-for-hire plot the following month, Wortman offered to pay a fellow inmate to kill his wife, but the prisoner turned state's witness, and it only added to the former attorney's growing list of legal problems. Later that year, Wortman pleaded guilty to 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder and 1 count of solicitation of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 9 years, but he became eligible for parole after serving just 4 years. Wortman has been denied freedom thus far and remains behind bars, with his next parole hearing scheduled for 2026. Number 18. The plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. In October of 2020, state and federal authorities arrested 13 men in connection with anti-government schemes, including a plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer around the time of the upcoming November 3rd election. Angered over Whitmer's policies during the COVID-19 pandemic, 6 of the suspects planned to either abandon her in a boat in the middle of Lake Michigan or take her to another state, while detonating a bomb under a bridge to distract the authorities. They spent months planning the crime by spying on Whitmer at her vacation home, doing training and combat drills and practicing building explosives. But the plot was foiled just weeks before it was scheduled to be carried out after one of the group's leaders reached out to the leader of another anarchist group for help. 7 members of the organization, known as the Wolverine Watchmen, agreed to assist in various ways. The 6 men who hatched the kidnapping plot were arrested by the FBI, while the 7 suspects from the Wolverine Watchmen were charged with state-level crimes. 29-year-old federal defendant Ty Garbin cooperated against his co-defendants and received a 75-month prison sentence, which was later reduced to 30 months. Daniel Harris and Brandon Caserta were acquitted at trial in 2022, while 28-year-old Caleb Franks took a plea deal and received a 4-year prison sentence. The heaviest sentences were imposed against the 2 ringleaders. 39-year-old Adam Fox received a 16-year prison term, followed by 5 years of post-release supervision, while 47-year-old Barry Croft Jr. was sentenced to nearly 20 years behind bars. The defendants who faced state charges were also convicted of various crimes and received prison sentences ranging from a minimum of 7 years to a maximum of 42 years. Number 17. David and Alexis Morad. After successfully robbing a half-pound of marijuana from a man at gunpoint during the spring of 2015, 18-year-old David Morad of Anderson Township, Ohio, hatched a plot to burglarize the same victim's Cincinnati area home. But the plan fell through just in the nick of time, when police stopped him 1 block away from the targeted home for suspicious behavior. He had just ran from the home after activating a floodlight and had tried visiting the day before but had been turned away by the homeowner. In David's possession, officers found a semi-automatic handgun, masks, surgical gloves and duct tape, making it seem likely that he was up to no good. He was eventually connected to at least 5 robberies of drug dealers over a year-long time period, despite coming from a privileged upbringing with parents who were both doctors. The robberies reportedly became increasingly brazen over time, and it was especially relieving that police had stopped the final burglary from happening, because David was unknowingly planning to target the wrong house, where a mother lived with her young children. He had conspired with his twin sister, Alexis, and 2 other suspects to rob the residence, where he believed the intended victims had thousands of dollars and several pounds of marijuana. According to text messages exchanged between the suspects, David planned to bind the victims until they told him where the goods were stashed. If they refused to talk, he would cut off their fingers, and if they tried to get away, he'd pop them. His defense attorney later insisted that it was all an immature teenage fantasy with no real intent behind it, but David ended up pleading guilty. In connection with 2 of the robberies he had been connected to, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison, followed by 5 years of community control, while Alexis was ordered to serve 3 years of probation for her role in the botched burglary. Number 16. Luis da Silva. Disaster was narrowly averted just hours before a Lady Gaga concert in Brazil in early May of 2025, when 44-year-old Luis da Silva and at least 1 teenage accomplice were arrested for plotting to detonate bombs during the performance. The 2 suspects planned to place the homemade explosives close to the stage at Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro, where an audience of 2.5 million was expected to attend. Da Silva reportedly believes that Lady Gaga is a Satanist. He used Discord to recruit his alleged accomplices and planned to kill a young victim during the show, according to authorities, who confirmed that the suspect had recently been deported from the United States. Police took him into custody during a raid on several locations that were thought to be connected to Da Silva's so-called terrorist cell. The reasons for Da Silva's deportation are currently under investigation. In the meantime, he remains free on bail as he awaits his next court hearing. Number 15. Edner Flores. On a Monday morning in January of 2021, 34-year-old Edner Flores entered a PNC Bank branch in Chicago's Humboldt Park neighborhood and handed the teller a deposit ticket requesting $10,000 and stating that he was armed. He also wrote, "No die packs" on the slip. The teller activated the silent alarm and tried to stall Flores by making him fill out a withdrawal slip while awaiting for the police to arrive, and while he had taken measures to conceal his appearance, including by wearing a mask, a hood and gloves. He did not hesitate to hand his ID over to the teller when they asked him for it. After arriving at the bank, officers arrested Flores and found a knife in his possession. He reportedly admitted to the attempted robbery, even identifying himself in surveillance photos, and was charged accordingly in federal court. Flores was sentenced to 2 years in prison and he vowed to never end up in the same position again. While he already had a lengthy criminal record prior to the botched bank heist, he blamed the attempted robbery on his addiction to the fentanyl-laced heroin that was plaguing Chicago's streets at the time. He ended up homeless, and his family's attempts to get him help proved futile. After running out of both drugs and money, Flores robbed the bank in hopes of obtaining enough money to fly to Puerto Rico, where he planned to get clean and start fresh. During his sentencing hearing in October 21, he said he never wanted to return to Chicago and that he still planned to move to Puerto Rico after serving his time. But that may not have happened, according to records from the Cook County Jail, which show that an Edner Flores was in custody for an arson charge in late 2023. Number 14. Jerry Hoover Tinsley. 38-year-old Jerry Hoover Tinsley was already on probation for previous bank robberies when he tried to rob a bank in Forest City, North Carolina. In June of 2018, he handed the teller a note but left the bank empty-handed and was found hiding in some nearby woods. Several hours later, he was appropriately dressed in a t-shirt that said, "No, you're right, let's do it the dumbest way possible." Back in 2010, Tinsley had robbed banks in various cities throughout Alabama with a female accomplice. Neither of the suspects appeared armed, and they demonstrated a pattern of handing notes to tellers, demanding all $100, $50, and $20 bills with no die packs. They purposely targeted banks near the state line and fled to Florida after each robbery, mistakenly believing that the authorities couldn't pursue them across state lines. But Tinsley was not even close to done with his bank robbing career, despite the failed 2018 heist. Now nicknamed the Appalachian Ghost Rider for his completely tattooed face, his appearance has transformed dramatically over the years. His most recent arrest came in February of 2025, when police responded to a call about a man behaving erratically at a hotel in Greenville, South Carolina. Tinsley admitted that he had been using methamphetamine and was feeling paranoid, and an officer soon discovered that he was wanted for stealing an SUV in North Carolina. He was taken to jail on an outstanding warrant for the crime and has managed to avoid making any additional news headlines in recent months. Number 13. Kimberly and Shenton Livingstone. 37-year-old Kimberly Alexis Marie Livingstone and 40-year-old Shenton Lloyd Livingstone of Sunrise, Florida, were unaware that police were onto them when they made plans to rob a delivery truck containing items they had ordered using a Martin County resident's stolen identity. In April of 2025, the goods were en route to the home of the victim, but the Broward County couple planned to intercept the shipment using a fake ID. They managed to stop the truck, but were reportedly shocked to learn that sheriff's detectives had joined the driver along his route. Kimberly Livingstone was charged with grand theft, a scheme to defraud, use of or possession of an ID of another person without consent, and possessing a fake driver's license. Shenton was charged with scheme to defraud and grand theft, and both defendants are currently free on bail while they await their next court hearings. Number 12. Khaled Khayat and Mahmoud Khayat. What was later described as the most sophisticated planned act of terrorism on Australian soil. Loyalists to the extreme group ISIS planned to bomb a passenger plane and commit a poison gas attack during the summer of 2017. A senior commander shipped materials for building an improvised explosive device to the suspects, 49-year-old Khaled Khayat and his brother 32-year-old Mahmoud Khayat, who were both living in Sydney at the time. The accused terrorists planned to place the IED on an Etihad Airways flight by placing it on one of the suspect's brothers without his knowledge, but the explosive never made it past airport security. Police cleared the brother of any wrongdoing after the IED was found hidden in a meat grinder in his check-in luggage. Investigators also learned that Khaled and Mahmoud had hoped to release highly toxic hydrogen sulfide into the air in a closed public space, including possibly a transit hub, but they were unable to create the gas, so the attack never happened. The brothers maintained their innocence but were both found guilty of conspiring to prepare or plan a terrorist act. Khaled Khayat was sentenced to 40 years in prison with a 30-year minimum, while Mahmoud received a 30-year sentence with a 27-year minimum. Number 11. John Manchec. after being arrested in the United States on dozens of serious criminal allegations. In 2014, an elderly French millionaire and accused predator named John Manchec bailed out of jail and fled to southern France. American authorities tried to extradite him to the US with no success while he kicked back inside his medieval castle, Chateau Péchregal. Manchec was finally captured in 2020 after investigators tracked him down to the Dominican Republic. He was extradited to Florida, where the judge deemed him a flight risk and refused to release him from the Indian River County Jail. He was still there in 2023 when a tipster revealed that he was plotting to escape and flee back to France. Manchec planned to make his getaway during a doctor's visit outside the jail, where a waiting accomplice would ambush the escorting officers with pepper spray. From there, he would proceed onward to his private plane and fly to Europe. Jailhouse informants recorded phone calls and other evidence corroborated the tipster's claim, and Manchec's plot was foiled. He was hit with an additional escape charge, and in July of 2024, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison for his crimes. Number 10. Cholo Abdi Abdullah. Hoping to emulate the 9/11 terrorist attacks on the Twin Towers in New York City, 34-year-old Kenyan national Cholo Abdi Abdullah formulated a plot to fly a plane into the 55-story Bank of America Plaza in Atlanta, Georgia. He was a member of the Al-Shabaab extremist group, which is loyal to Al-Qaeda, and he spent 2 years planning the attack. In his efforts to prepare for it, he took flight classes in the Philippines and had almost obtained his pilot's license by the time authorities learned of his sinister intentions. Federal authorities arrested Abdullah in 2019 and he was formally indicted on 6 charges the following year. In November of 2024, he was convicted of all counts, including conspiring to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization, providing material support to a foreign terrorist organization, conspiring to murder U.S. nationals, conspiring to destroy aircraft, and conspiring to commit acts of terrorism transcending national boundaries. He was scheduled to be sentenced in April of 2025, but the proceeding was delayed after he requested new lawyers during a court hearing. Number 9. Foiled jail drug distribution plot. In December of 2019, authorities in Clark County, Kentucky arrested 10 inmates for their involvement in a plot to distribute drugs throughout the local jail. They also identified 41-year-old Matthew Bays as the inmate's contact on the outside, who reportedly coordinated with the detainees' relatives to pick up the drugs and drop them off in the jail's lobby, where trustees cleaned. Bays communicated with people on the inside using construction-like code words, with windows referring to methamphetamine and paint being the term for different types of pills. Investigators decoded the messages and were able to figure out what the suspects were talking about, including the words they used for designated drop-off points. While announcing the arrest of the 10 inmates, a sheriff's spokesperson revealed that they were still looking for Bays, who was captured several weeks later at a hotel in Clarksville. He faced 26 charges, and while it's unclear how the case turned out, he does not appear to currently be in state custody. Number 8. Damien Allen. Authorities in Palm Beach County, Florida believe that a mass shooting was narrowly prevented after a tip from the FBI led to the discovery of an acreage man's arsenal of weapons. According to reports, 22-year-old Damien Allen was already under investigation for questionable online activity when the intel from the FBI escalated the urgency of the matter. While searching Allen's residence, police found 18 guns, more than 12,000 rounds of ammunition, tactical gear, ballistic armor, and several police and military uniforms, including an FBI uniform and Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office uniform. They also found authentic local police gear, including Palm Beach County badges, gun belts, and a name tag. Allen had been communicating with like-minded individuals, including Wisconsin school shooter Natalie Rupnow, who killed 2 people in December of 2024. He's currently being held at the Palm Beach County Jail on charges of written threats to kill, unlawful use of a two-way communication device, and impersonating an officer. If convicted as charged, he could face up to 21 years in prison. Authorities have also enacted the process of revoking Allen's guns under the state's red flag law. Number 7. Cameron Darrick Peterson. 18-year-old Cameron Darrick Peterson's plan to shoot up a Buckeyes and 2 San Antonio, Texas high schools was 2 years in the making when police stopped him from following through. He reportedly began plotting the attacks in November of 2022 and attempted to buy a gun in 2024 but was denied due to his age and the type of weapon. Undeterred by the rejected sale, Peterson remained intent on bringing his vision to fruition. In a recorded conversation with his girlfriend, he could be heard saying that the Buckeyes attack was meant to distract law enforcement while he massacred the 2 high schools. He tried to buy a gun again a few months later but was turned away. The FBI arrested Peterson in June of 2024 after discovering social media posts stating that he planned to attack people at a gas station. While searching his home, agents found altered guns, loaded magazines, and equipment for building an improvised explosive device. 4 months after his arrest, Peterson pleaded guilty to 1 count of attempting to receive a firearm to commit a felony and was sentenced to 78 months in federal prison. Number 6. Seth Andrea Gregori. In February of 2025, authorities in Corpus Christi, Texas, thwarted a mass casualty attack that a young man was planning to commit against law enforcement. 21-year-old Seth Andrea Gregori was apprehended by the FBI on a warrant for making terroristic threats after a friend notified law enforcement that he was in possession of an assault rifle and had said he wanted to kill police officers. The informant shared 71 pages of text messages, which appeared to show Gregori expressing this desire at length. More specifically, he stated that he wanted to carry out an attack similar to the 2016 Dallas ambush, which referred to a shooting that left 5 Dallas officers dead and 9 injured. Gregori also reportedly mentioned the shooter, Micah Xavier Johnson, by name. He seemed fully intent on following through with his plan, and law enforcement made it an urgent priority to stop him from succeeding. According to the most recent available updates on the case, Gregori was in custody but had yet to be formally charged. Number 5. Richard Reddin and Jeffrey Jenkins. In April of 2025, investigators in Georgia foiled a plot to deliver contraband to inmates at the Fulton County Jail by drone. The bust came after law enforcement received a tip about 2 alleged smugglers transporting illicit goods, prompting a sheriff's deputy to conduct a traffic stop. Inside the suspect's car, police found marijuana, cell phone chargers, 9 cell phones, oxycodone, pills, cigarettes, and more. The tobacco alone was worth thousands of dollars in jail, according to Fulton County Sheriff Pat Labatt, who spoke with WSB-TV following the arrests of Richard Reddin and Jeffrey Jenkins on suspicion of drug trafficking and possession of prohibited items by an inmate or providing prohibited items to an inmate. There was also a drone in the car along with packaging, which led to the suspicion that a similar drop had already been made days earlier. The previous drop had consisted of oxycodone and McDonald's sandwiches, but it never reached its intended recipients because it was found near the jail's fence. Jenkins and Reddin have maintained their innocence in the case, which reflects a bigger problem across the state of Georgia, with contraband being delivered to jails and prisons using drones. Number 4. Michail Chkhikvishvili. A 21-year-old Georgian national has been extradited to the United States from Moldova on federal terrorism charges for plotting a mass casualty attack in Manhattan. Michail Chkhikvishvili leads a white supremacist and violent extremist group called the Maniac Murder Cult, also known as MKY, and by several other names. The organization promotes acts of hatred and violence against minority groups, including the Jewish community and others whom they deem undesirable. Chkhikvishvili arrived in the United States in 2022 and stayed with his grandmother, who lives in Brooklyn. During that time, he encouraged others to commit violent hate crimes, including bombings, arson, and murders. He eventually unknowingly began chatting with an undercover FBI agent who posed as someone interested in becoming a member of the group. In 2023, Chkhikvishvili solicited the undercover for various crimes that he wanted to commit, including poisoning Jewish school children with laced candy. In the meantime, he claimed that he had murdered before and that he was proud of it, although it's unclear whether this is actually true. Chkhikvishvili is charged with 4 federal counts relating to the solicitation of hate crimes and acts of mass violence. 2 of the charges carry a maximum 20-year prison sentence, while the other 2 carry a maximum sentence of 5 years. Number 3. Estefana De La Rosa. In early 2025, a social media dispute in Fort Worth, Texas, escalated into an attempt to lure 2 people to their murders by staging a fake kidnapping. A teenager named Estefana De La Rosa posed as the kidnapping victim, prompting the intended targets to call the police. Shortly after arriving on scene, officers began to realize that they were not dealing with a conventional kidnapping. They managed to foil the plot before it could be carried out, and De La Rosa was arrested alongside 31-year-old Christian Hernandez Carrizales and 23-year-old Jesus Huitron. The trio are accused of conspiring with one another to lure and kill the intended targets and are each charged with conspiracy to commit murder. According to police, De La Rosa and her accomplices purchased a weapon in anticipation of the crime. They reportedly wanted the victims dead over a social media post, but no one was harmed, thanks to the swift intervention of law enforcement and the quick-thinking officer who saw through the situation and realized that there was more to it. Number 2. Amar Abdulmajid-Mohamed Saeed. a former National Guard member, is facing charges for plotting to massacre a U.S. Army base in Warren, Michigan, where he believed he had the help of 2 undercover agents who were posing as ISIS loyalists. 19-year-old Abdulmajid-Mohamed provided armor-piercing ammunition and magazines to the undercovers and flew his drone over the intended target site known as the Tank, Automotive and Armaments Command (TACOM) facility, located at the Detroit Arsenal. Saeed reportedly began plotting the attack as far back as 2023. In 2024, his superiors covertly searched his iPhone after he handed it over before boarding a military aircraft. Investigators discovered that he had been interacting with someone located in Palestine and had told the person that he wanted to go for jihad. Saeed left the military in December 2024 and was arrested by federal authorities in February of 2025. He's charged with attempting to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization and distributing information related to a destructive device, which each carry a maximum 20-year sentence in the event of a conviction. Number 1. Patrick Rafferty. In March of 2015, a 27-year-old British man named Patrick Rafferty was captured on surveillance video while committing crimes at 2 different stores in Wolverhampton. Rafferty began his evening by trying to hold up a convenience store with help from an unidentified accomplice. Employees recalled seeing the 2 men rushing for the cash register while swinging metal bars around and almost hitting each other in the process. They were unable to open the till and made off with less than $30 in cash, along with an old laptop computer. One of the suspects dropped their weapon while fleeing the scene, thereby marking the crime scene with their DNA. As the men attempted to flee the scene, Rafferty's getaway car stalled. They proceeded on foot to another nearby store where Rafferty cut his hand on broken glass, leaving additional DNA behind, which was later used to connect him to the crimes. During one of the videos from that night, Rafferty could be seen trying and failing to raid a cigarette kiosk. He was arrested 3 days later and admitted to robbery and burglary, resulting in a 6-year prison sentence. Thanks for watching. If you had already served 16 years of a 20-year prison sentence and were suddenly presented with a perfect opportunity to escape, would you take it? Why or why not? Let us know in the comments section below.